Frontiers and Pioneers, in association with Sempra Infrastructure.
So as we've seen here in the United States, natural gas has displaced enormous amounts of coal. And what that has done is allow the United States not only to continue to grow its economy, but also to reduce its carbon emissions from energy sources, roughly by 14% over the course of the last 15 years or so. And this is at the same time that the U.S. has developed or has increased its economic output by roughly 17%. So it's very important that we continue this progress on the carbon emissions front, and we think natural gas is again a very important contributor to the environmental goals that are set not only in the United States but all around the world.
Hello and welcome to LNG TV and today's episode of Frontiers and Pioneers. I'm Will Dawson. I am delighted to be joined today by Dan Brouillette, President of Sempra Infrastructure. Dan previously served as the 15th US Secretary of Energy, leading a workforce of 105,000 employees and contractors, driving federal energy policy and directing a $44 billion annual budget, developing strategic and enduring relationships and partnerships at the highest level across the globe. Dan, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
No, we absolutely appreciate it. Diving straight in, Dan, if we may. Global energy prices have been highly dynamic over the last year, specifically in relation to kind of commodity and shipping prices in both Europe and Asia. What do you expect from the market, or how may it act looking at 2022 and beyond?
Well, you're absolutely correct. It's been very dynamic. We've seen ups and we've seen downs. It's not unusual for this particular industry. But we're in a period of time in which natural gas is in high demand all around the world. And for companies like Sempra Infrastructure, it creates an enormous economic opportunity for us. We're in the business of developing infrastructure that allows for the transport of this important fuel source. It allows for both the transport within the United States, in Mexico, and importantly, it allows for the export of this important fuel source. We've developed infrastructure facilities in Louisiana. We're developing one in Texas. We have one in Mexico. We're developing another in Mexico. We'll have two there eventually. And what that means is that this important natural gas will reach Asia. It will reach developing countries in Asia. It will reach developing countries in Europe, and also provide energy security on both continents. So we're very excited about the marketplace. We think it's dynamic. We also think, importantly, that this fuel source is adding to the capacity for renewable energy around the world as well. It serves as an important baseload generation fuel. So we're very excited about the marketplace. We think it's great for us. We think it's great for Sempra. It's great for our colleagues in the business, and it's an exciting time to be a part of it.
Domestically, the US natural gas industry has both its strong supporters and indeed its critics. Would appreciate your views on the importance of natural gas in the broader US energy landscape.
Well, I think, as I just alluded to, the importance of natural gas to the development of renewable technologies, or capacity, I should say, cannot be overstated. Today, as we sit here in America, as we look across the world in places like Europe, where renewable energy has become a larger and larger part of the energy portfolios, it has become somewhat complementary to have these renewable technologies depend upon, in some respects, the baseload generation that's provided by natural gas. It's displaced many more carbon-intense fuels around the world as well. So as we've seen here in the United States, natural gas has displaced enormous amounts of coal. And what that has done is allow the United States not only to continue to grow its economy, but also to reduce its carbon emissions from energy sources, roughly by 14% over the course of the last 15 years or so. And this is at the same time that the U.S. has developed or has increased its economic output by roughly 17%. So it's very important that we continue this progress on the carbon emissions front, and we think natural gas is again a very important contributor to the environmental goals that are set not only in the United States but all around the world.
In the anticipation of kind of continued demand growth, we're seeing billions and millions of dollars invested in new natural gas infrastructure projects. Specifically in relation to kind of renewable energy and project scaling in that space, how do you think that that will impact future LNG sales?
Well, I think futures, I look at the futures, I look down the road, and look at the market demand that's coming online and look at the data that's provided by the Energy Information Administration, which is part of the agency that I helped run. As we look at the data that is coming from the International Energy Agency out of Paris, France, Dr. Fatih Birol, you see that natural gas will continue to be in high demand for perhaps as long as 30 to 40 years, 3 to 4 decades. And if that's correct, if they are absolutely correct about that, and I happen to think that they are, again, for the reasons I just articulated, it's a perfect complement to many of the renewable generation facilities that are coming online. If they're correct about that, then I think you're going to see enormous investment into this industry. You'll see increased production in the United States. The United States is about to become the world's largest exporter of natural gas. We're already the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. We're larger than Russia and larger than Saudi Arabia. So those are the trend lines that I see in the future, and I don't see any diminishing of that anytime in the near term.
And specifically in relation to LNG, what's Sempra's view on the important role that LNG will play in meeting kind of net zero emission targets?
Well, as LNG is used more and more in developing countries, we're going to see places like China transition away from the use of heavy or higher carbon intense fuels like coal. In places like India, we'll see them move away from carbon intense fuels like wood and fuel oil into a cleaner form of energy production, and that's obviously natural gas. It is very, very price competitive. And it's available. That's really important for people to understand. To the extent that we are developing infrastructure here in the United States, in Australia, and Qatar, other places around the world that provide LNG, the fuel is available and it's price competitive. That's very important for a developing nation. So LNG has an important role to play in the displacement of these types of fuels. But again, it also has a very important role to play as a complement to renewable energy around the world.
So you talk about that complement to renewable energy. Hydrocarbons are going to be part of the energy mix for some decades to come. What would you say are some of the most important things that companies should be considering to try and mitigate kind of impacts from hydrocarbons when considering longer term sustainability?
Well, I think what we're doing here at Sempra Energy is very important. We're developing carbon capture and sequestration technologies and facilities. We're partnered up with the Department of Energy, the national laboratories at the Department of Energy specifically, to assess and analyze and evaluate the latest technologies for carbon capture. But in the meantime, what we're doing is filing permits for the capture and storage of carbon near our facilities. We have one that's underway now in Louisiana. We have a Cameron LNG facility, an export facility there. We are pursuing the development of a project that will allow us to capture the pure streams of carbon from that facility and permanently store them in Louisiana. The geology there is absolutely perfect for that type of project. And I think you'll see that type of effort all across the hydrocarbon industry. It's already occurring in the oil fields in Texas and around other parts of the United States. But you're going to see continued activity around that. As the world continues to demand greener and greener molecules, you'll see the deployment of these types of technologies all around the world as well to meet that demand.
Picking up exactly on what you've just said in terms of greener and greener molecules, the energy industry is under a heightened spotlight, with some, accusing the industry of greenwashing. Critics have talked about overstating, offsets and how much CO2 that might be removed, lack of standardization, regulation, being able to verify such offsets. There is progress being made. There are significant efforts underway, but is any of this criticism fair?
Look, I think anytime you have a nascent industry, like we have in the development of carbon offsets or renewable energy credits, you're going to have a period of time in which people are trying to standardize methodologies within the industry. And that's what's happening here. At Sempra, we're very supportive of developing a methodology, a system, if you will, of carbon accounting. We think it's very important that we look at both our upstream and downstream scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, if you will, and analyze them and be able to show the customer very transparently what is the impact of these fuel sources that we're putting into the marketplace. We're very supportive of that. We're working closely with organizations in Washington, D.C. We're working with private sector organizations to develop this type of accounting system or methodology. I think it's, to some degree unfair to suggest that the industry is greenwashing. I don't believe that. I don't think that that's accurate. I think this industry is really at the tip of the spear of developing the information that consumers are demanding and that governments are requiring.
So, Dan, you're president of Sempra's new infrastructure business. My understanding is your focus is not just on the US, but also Mexico. What do you see as the key opportunities for cooperation between the US and Mexico as it relates to energy?
Well, Mexico is an incredibly important partner to the United States and to Sempra Energy as well, Sempra Infrastructure. We see an enormously bright future for Mexico. It's currently roughly the 15th largest economy in the world, and we suspect that that's going to grow over the course of the next 30 to 40 years. So we want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of the Mexican economy. We want to be a part of helping develop the energy sources that economy will need and providing that country the energy security that it desires. So we're very excited about the opportunities in Mexico. You may already know Mexico is our largest trading partner. So it's already big, and it's going to get much, much bigger in the future. So our development on the Baja Peninsula, what we call ECA, it's in Casa Azul. It's an export facility. It used to be a regas facility. What still is a regas facility, but we're developing it to be an export facility. That's an enormous opportunity for the United States and Mexico to provide LNG to the Asian markets, which, as you well know, are just on fire right at the moment. My next question is indeed about LNG marketing, at least in part. So the president's role, amongst other key areas, is responsible for external affairs, sustainability, and indeed LNG marketing. Considering your significant and unique experience, I guess, as a global leader, diplomat, and deal broker, what are you looking forward to most in this new position? Well, I think what I'm excited about is the opportunity with Sempra to develop this infrastructure, not only here in the United States, but again around the world. As we move into what is yet another energy transition around the world, we see unique opportunities for Sempra. We're the only company at the moment that has the ability to export LNG from the West Coast and the East Coast, or the Gulf Coast of the United States. Given the supplies here, given the partners that we have here, given the enormous track record of Sempra Energy, this company's been in this business for over 100 years. Given the enormous track record that they have, not only for the steady supply of energy, but for the innovation that they bring to the marketplace, it's an incredibly exciting time to help the teams here at Sempra further develop their capabilities and further develop their opportunities.
Finally, Dan, we love to ask our guests about both legacy and impact. When it comes time to reflect on your career, what would you hope to have achieved, and what impact would you like to have had?
That's a great question. I haven't given it a lot of deep thought, but as I look back on my time as both Deputy Secretary of Energy and Secretary of Energy, and my time in this business in the private sector, I hope that people will recognize the enormous transition that's occurred in the last decade or so, not only from the types of fuel sources that we use, but the positioning of the United States within the world markets of energy. We have gone from an importing nation to an exporting nation. That happened during my time as the Secretary of Energy. I'm very proud of the regulatory constructs and the regulatory policies that we put in place that allowed the energy industry to produce more energy here in the United States and allow the United States to become energy independent. I'm enormously proud of the contributions that we made at the department while I was there. The commissioning of the 2 fastest supercomputers in the world, the creation of a new laboratory that's solely dedicated to battery storage technologies, grid scale battery storage technologies. The creation of the nuclear fuels that were used by the Mars mission at NASA. Those are enormous technological advances that will allow the United States to continue its energy positioning in the marketplace, and will allow other countries to rely upon us, or allies to rely upon us as secure partners. And Sempra has that history as well. And I think as we look forward and we look down the road a bit, we see a bright opportunity not only for the United States, but for Sempra Infrastructure as well.
Dan, thank you so very much indeed. You've clearly got so much more to give to the energy industry. Hugely appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us today on LNG TV.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you once again for watching. This has been Frontiers and Pioneers. From me and the LNG TV team, goodbye for now.
Frontiers and Pioneers, in association with Sempra Infrastructure.